You all know about our wonderful mikveh being built outside, so we're really happy to have this evening, and our mikveh is on its way, and will continue to be on its way. This evening is sponsored by, or co-sponsored by Mikveh USA, which is a wonderful organization based in New York and was founded in 2004, and it's committed to provide every community across North America with a dream mikveh. They help communities build beautiful, beautiful spa-like mikvahs. They help with halachic guidance, the rabbi end of it, financial assistance, and the resources to help this dream come to fruition. To date, unbelievably, they have helped over 70 mikvah projects. Wow. Their latest project and passion is launching the education division, which this evening is part of, and they help sponsor seminars, workshops, and lectures for enlightening and empowering women across the continent to embrace and unwrap the beautiful gift of mikvah. So we thank them for their help in making this evening happen. Tonight, we are very privileged to have with us tonight Chana Weisberg. I know many of you maybe haven't met her, but you've met her online. She's the editor of the JewishWoman.org. If you haven't checked it out, it's a division of the Chabad.org website. It's the women part of the website. She has many articles and videos on there. So I see some of you smiling that you have read her or watched her there. Chana Weisberg comes from a long line of distinguished rabbis, and she herself is the mother of 6 children and 4 grandchildren, Leah and Hara. She's also the author. Here it says 5 books, but I know her latest books, we'll make it 6 books. Her latest book was recently published. It's a book about the Torah portion, so check it out. I'm sure it's on Amazon. It's available. I'm sure after tonight, you can all check out her book. So you personally have used her book in classes that I've given to women in our community. Chana Weisberg speaks and writes about a wide array of topics relating to women, feminism, the masculine and feminine dichotomy, relationships, the soul, faith, and Jewish mysticism. And I'm sure there's more than that. So without further ado, the evening, I'm going to give it over to Chana Weisberg, who's going to enlighten us and inspire us about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here in warm California. I came this morning from cold New York State, rainy New York State. There was this professor who taught computer science, and he decided to do an activity with his class. He decided to divide them by gender and put them on opposite sides of the room. Men on one side, the women on the other side. And the activity that he assigned them was to decide what gender computers are. The men unanimously decided that computers are feminine, and they gave these reasons. 1, no one but their creator understands their internal logic. When computers communicate with each other, they speak in code languages that only they understand. Every mistake is stored on their hard drive for later retrieval. The women voted unanimously that computers must be of the male gender. And the reasons that they gave were as follows. Number 1, they have a lot of data, but still can't think for themselves. They're supposed to help you solve problems, but half the time they are the problems. As soon as you commit to one, you realize that maybe if you waited a little longer, you could have got a better model. So jokes on men and women are things that you find so much of, and it's something that we all relate to because we all deal with some aspect of the male and female communication styles and issues that divide us in our relationships. And that's why some of the best-selling books out there are on relationships and how to navigate this sometimes difficult terrain. In the very beginning, before there was a world, close your eyes for a second, imagine that. We can't really imagine it because when we think of nothing, we think of black, right? You're thinking of blackness, but black too is a creation. So before there was anything created, there was God and God alone. And God was perfectly self-contained. He was perfectly happy and capable in himself without any need of anything or anyone. But God had a desire. He had a desire to have a relationship with us, human beings who seemingly have our free choice to choose if we want to be part of this relationship. And so he created the world. In the Holy Temple, the holiest places was the Kodesh HaKadashim, the Holy of Holies. And in that Holy of Holies, there was the Aron, and on top of the Aron was 2 kruvim, which is 2 cherubic faces that were looking at each other. From in between the space where the 2 cherubic faces were looking, that is where we could communicate. It was the holiest place where we could actually get communication from God. Now there's a message here. The 2 faces were looking at one another. They were facing one another. And the message is that if you really want to have a godly experience, a holy experience in your life, you need to have another in your life. You need to look at another, face that other, see the other, really see the other, in order to have the holiest experience. Now, sometimes when you look at another person, you don't like what you see, because you might see things that you don't want to see. You see emotions, you see hurt, you see needs, you see resentment, you see anger, and some of those things you might have caused. You don't like all the things that you see. But if we really want to have the holiest, best experience possible, we need to truly look at somebody, include another, face that other person, and include them in our lives. That is the greatest experience possible. But when it comes to men and women, we sometimes don't get along. I'm going to read to you 4 different common disconnects. And you're going to tell me if it's a man's issue or a woman's issue, if it's the man having the complaint against women or the woman having a complaint against the men. These are 4 disconnects for men and women that were actually done in a study. And you tell me what you think. You're always trying to change me. Who's saying this? The men against the women. You're letting yourself go. Men. Okay. You never listen to me. Women's complaint. You never help around the house. Women. You don't spend enough time with me. We never go anywhere anymore.
I just said that one today.
You're nagging me to death. Who says that? Men. You blame me for everything. How did you guys know? You guys scored a perfect 100%. And how does everyone always seem to get that right? Because as much as men and women are different, and as much as we can't really generalize, we seem to have a problem. The issue from these 4 things that women seem to be saying is that, you know, when we were going out, when we first got married, I was the center of your world. I was everything to you. You would do anything for me. Now I feel like a piece of old furniture. Necessary maybe, used maybe, but not appreciated. What are men saying? Men are saying, you know, when we first were going out or when we first got married, I was your Prince Charming. I did everything right. I made everything right. And now I can't get anything right. Everything I do is wrong. And if we look at in the first verses of Genesis, of Bereshit, God is really addressing this issue, and he's telling us a little secret of how to handle this issue. He says to us, if we look at the very beginning, we have the 6 days of creation, and one day is followed by the next. Amazing things are being created until finally, day number 6, we have the creation of man. Man is created, he looks around him, and he sees this beautiful world. even more beautiful than Pasadena, if you could believe that, okay? Which is gorgeous, but a gorgeous world. He looks at this whole world and he realizes that it's all his. He doesn't even have to share it with anybody. There's only him. Wow, amazing. And what does God say to this creation man? God says, uh-oh, this creation that I made is not good. I'm going to make for you, woman, an Ezer Kenegdo. What is God telling man? He's saying to man, to the first man, and to all future men, he's saying, you know what? You might have everything at your fingertips. You have richness. You have power. You have a great career. You have everything for your taking. You're not good without her. Make sure you show her that you value her. Make her the center of your world, because without her, you have nothing. You are not good. What does God tell women? You know, as women, we tend to come into a room or come into a situation and we look around us and we say, we'll fix that, we'll move that, we'll change that, and with all that, that will be perfect, right? We'll color this color, and we'll change a little the decorations, we'll move the decor, that will be beautiful. We look at something and we look at how we can improve it. And often, we do that with our spouses or with our other half that we're in a relationship with. So we look at him and we say, oh, what a great guy. If only I could change this and that and that and that and move this and that around. Perfect. We tend to be critical. So what does God say to women? He says, you need to be Ezer Kenegdo. You need to be his helpmate who builds him up, who gives him praise, who's his cheerleader, because your every smile gives him oxygen to his blood. Your every word of encouragement encourages him. This is the message that God gives to Adam and to Chava, to the first man and woman. And this is the message that God gives to each and every one of us, man and woman, in our own lives. How to appreciate that relationship, how to cultivate that relationship. And yet, you sometimes look around us and we just seem to be communicating so differently. We're so different in how we communicate that we don't even understand each other. I'll give you a few examples. She says, are you listening to me? What does she mean? Too late, you're doomed. If I'm asking you if you're listening to me, then oh, you're in trouble. She says, I'm not yelling. She means, of course I am. I think this is important. He asks, what's wrong? She says, nothing. She means everything. She says, uh-oh, do I look fat? What does she mean? Tell me I'm beautiful. Exactly. I need to hear that right now. She wonders, why doesn't he communicate his feelings more openly? He wonders. Huh? Why must she analyze everything I say or do? I wasn't feeling anything. She wonders, why can't he be more in tune with my feelings? She wonders, he wonders. Am I supposed to be a mind reader? How am I supposed to know what you're feeling? So men and women communicate so differently. You know, if we're trying to get from point A to point B, there's really two ways that we can go about it. We can go from A to B in a straight line, and we'll get there as quickly as we can in the least possible amount of time. Or if we want to go from point A to point B, we can go in a circle. We'll still get to that point, but it will take a lot longer, but we'll make a lot more points of relationships along the way. Kabbalah talks about men and women and talks about men in terms of shapes. Men are the line, women are the circle. And we see this physiologically, biologically, how we are created in a physical anatomy. We see this emotionally, and we see this spiritually. Let me give you an example of how this is. And by the way, we see this line and circle analogy very much at a Jewish wedding. We stand in a chuppah, which is a circle. The bride circles the groom, who's the line. The groom puts on a ring, circle, on the bride's forefinger, line. The groom gives the bride the ketubah, which is a line of paper, but it is rolled up to make a circle. So at a Jewish wedding, we're combining these natural, physiological, spiritual, and emotional differences to combine it to make a beautiful Jewish home. But let me give you an example of how it is that women are the circle while men are the line. In the book of Bereshit, the first chapter talks about God creating the world, and he commands man to create a hierarchy on creation. Create order, create a line of order, create a hierarchy on creation, create order out of the disorder. In the very next chapter, when Chava is created as an independent being, God talks about it as creating a home where you can guard and protect. Man likes to be the conqueror, to get to the point, to get to his destination as quickly as possible. Woman likes to be the circle who creates relationships along the way. That's part of how she is, and that's part of what makes her journey so special. Now, when I talk about men and women, I have to preface this with saying not every man is the way I'm talking about in terms of masculine, and not every woman is the way I'm talking about in terms of feminine. Usually, most women have feminine characteristics and most men have masculine characteristics. But if you see that in your relationship, the dance of the relationship is the opposite or it's shared, that's okay. What we're talking about is the dance of a relationship. And just understanding the various dances and the various steps of the dance enables us to understand what our relationship is all about. And I'll be a little stereotypical here, and a little extreme in my examples, just to get the point across. So let's say we have a couple. We'll call them Barry and Sarah. And Barry and Sarah are about to go for a long drive to a destination. They get in the car, they start driving, they're driving along. After some time, Sarah turns to Barry and she says, "You know, Barry, there's a rest stop right up ahead. Would you maybe want to stop for a cold drink or a cup of coffee?" And Barry says, "Nah," just as he drives past the rest stop. Now, for the next few minutes in the car, there is a deafening silence. It takes Barry a few more minutes to realize that there is this deafening silence. But when he does realize it, he goes back on the lines of conversation that they just had, the lines of dialogue, and for the life of him, he can't figure out, what did I do wrong? She asked if I want to stop for a coffee. I said no. Now, every Sarah in this room knows that when Sarah asked Barry if he wants to stop for a cup of coffee, she was
telling him to stop for
telling him to stop for the coffee. Now, every Barry in this room, though, wonders if Sarah, why didn't she tell me? I would have been happy to, good, no, he's doing great. If she would have just told me to stop for the coffee, I would have been happy to stop for the coffee. Why didn't she just say so? But every Sarah in this room knows that she didn't say so because testing could be because she I'll tell you my theory, okay? Because Sarah was giving Barry the opportunity to nurture her. She was giving him the opportunity to do what she does so much in her day-to-day, which is nurture everybody around her. She was giving him the opportunity to nurture her. Sarah is the circle, Barry is the line. He wants to get to his destination as fast as he can. That's what conquerors do. They get conquest. Sarah is into relationships and nurturance and guarding and protecting. For her, that's so much more important. And that's why Barry doesn't stop, because he's like, I'm on my conquest mode. I need to get her there as fast as possible, versus taking the cues of what she's actually saying. Let me give you another example of this kind of conquest. Barry and Sarah are about to go out at night to an event, and they are late. The event was called for 7:30. It's already 7:45, and Barry's calling to Sarah, who's upstairs getting dressed. And he says, "New, are you ready yet?" Finally, a little after 8, Sarah comes down and she says, "So, how do I look?" And Barry says, "Okay, beautiful, let's go," right? Sarah is in her circle mode. She's in her nurturance mode, because that's what she does throughout her day. Barry's in his conquest mode. We need to get there as fast as possible. Let's just get there already. We're so late. You know, science and biology really back up this circle and line theory. When it talks about men's eyes, men have larger eyes, which are wonderful for longer distances, tunnel vision. Any of you have children? Any of your children ever say, "Mom has eyes in the back of her head"? Mom could see everything, even from the back of her head. Why don't they say that about Dad? You'll never hear them saying about Dad, right? Why don't they say that about Dad? Because women actually have smaller eyes, but can see almost peripheral vision. We can see almost 180 degrees around us. So we do almost have eyes in the back of our head, because we're seeing so much around us. Conquest, line vision versus the circular vision. Ask a man to name you 4 colors. At this event, there's a lovely tablecloth. What color is it?
Purple.
Purple, okay. Ask a man to name 4 colors and you'll hear? Red, blue, green, yellow. Primary colors. Ask a woman to describe colors like this color of the tablecloth or some other colors. Mauve, dusty mauve. Okay. Let's hear some other colors. Taupe. Mauve, mustard, aqua, right? You'll hear all these different tones of colors. And this is scientifically true as well. When we talk about the retina, which is responsible for the cone-shaped cells that are responsible for color, women have a lot more than men. We see the intricacy, the details, the line versus the circle, and how we look at things. In a resting state, they decided to actually look at the brains of men and women. And you'd think that in a resting state, most of the activity of the brain would be resting, right? We're in a resting state. In a resting state, the activity of a man's brain was 70% inactive, restful, which you'd expect. In a resting state, the activity level of a woman's brain was 90% active. So the woman is thinking about all the things that need to be done in her day. Take a woman or a man who go to sleep at night. The man is sleeping, he's out cold. His head hits the pillow, that's it. When a woman hits the pillow, she's thinking about all the things that happened during the day, plus all the things she needs to do tomorrow, plus all the things she didn't take care of, plus this one's need and that one's need and her friend's need and what happened to her children. All these things, because the woman is that circle versus the man who is that line. And that's why we need to somehow understand these differences. When you ask a man at the end of his day, how was your day? You'll get?
One word.
Good, fine, okay, not bad, right? Maybe 2, okay? When you ask a woman at the end of the day, how was your day? You'll hear everything from her co-worker's children to her cousin's nephew to the mailman who came to deliver the mail to the bus driver. You'll hear everything. Line versus the circle. And that's why men use communication as a means of achieving a hierarchy, getting to a point across. Women use communication, on the other hand, in order to build relationships. And that's why when a woman is not happy with a man, she'll give him the silent treatment, because communication is a reward. They tell a joke about the husband who turns to his wife after a few days that they were in a fight, and he says to her, "So where's my shirts?" And she says, "What?" He says, "Do you know where my shirts are?" And she says, "What? Now you're asking me? After 4 days we haven't been talking to each other, and now you're asking me?" And he says, "What are you talking about? I thought we were just getting along." So again, men use communication for a point, for a purpose, and that's why one of a woman's most hated expressions is get to the point. We want to explore the circle and all the parts on the circle. So this, of course, explains our differences, and that is why I'm leading to the next part, which is a system of living which is so special, that is especially taking into account men and women's differences and sets a system of living in place that can help both men and women. And that is Taharat HaMishpacha, the system of living for men and women, the system of family purity. In a nutshell, this system states that when a woman has her menstrual period, until after the period is finished, plus 7 days thereafter, so we're talking about 12 days, she and her husband physically separate. That means no intimate physical connection with each other. Doesn't mean that they separate. They're still living in the same house and they're still talking and communicating, but there's no sexual relationship. There's no physical contact with each other. After that 12 days or so, the woman immerses in a mikveh, which we are building here in Pasadena. It's a beautiful spiritual experience that she has. The mikvahs that are being built nowadays are gorgeous. They're like spa-like. Any of you have seen a mikveh? Beautiful, gorgeous. And she has a certain spiritual experience there, and then she and her husband could reunite and reconnect physically. Now, I want to talk a little about the benefits of this system. So first of all, who can tell me what's the greatest cause of divorce? What do you think?
Boredom.
Huh?
Boredom.
Boredom, good one.
Communication.
Communication, good one.
Money fights.
Money fights, yes. Anything else?
Infidelity.
Infidelity, yes. Anything else? Okay, these are all good things. I mean, real reasons, real causes. But actually, none of them are the real cause of divorce. The number one cause of divorce in marriages is marriage. You have to be married in order to get divorced, right? It's a joke, okay? But there's a message behind the joke, and that is that when we are married, it can lead to divorce, meaning it can cause all these things that you spoke about, boredom, lack of communication. That's what happens after some time in a relationship. And that's why this system of living, this system of family purity laws, is so central and so important for proper relationships to continue. So I want to talk about 5 benefits of it. Number 1, the first thing that was said is boredom. When we separate from each other, we suddenly crave each other so much more. How many of you woke up this morning, opened your fridge and said, "Whoa, look at that, I have apples in my fridge"? How many of you did that? Really? No one? You did? Oh, look at you, you're spiritual. How many of you opened up your water and said, "Whoa, I have running water"? Okay? Or I have a drink of water. After we fast on Yom Kippur, when you have your piece of apple or piece of cake or whatever it is that you're breaking your fast on, suddenly you appreciate it, right? You appreciate every morsel of what you're eating, because we live in a society where we have a lot of things, but when you stop having it, that's when you appreciate it. We live in a society where we have a lot of problems in terms of marriage. We're a very highly sexualized society. And the answer that a lot of people are saying is explore new things. So pornography is rampant, premarital sex is obvious, sexless marriages is also happening on the other hand, and yet we're exploring other new avenues. And Torah has a completely scheduled in. Yes, it's scheduled in. But think about all the important things in your life. Think about your important appointments with doctors or therapists, or your important lunch dates with your friends. If you don't schedule those on your calendar, it just doesn't happen. So this boredom is definitely something that is avoided through this special system of living. The next thing that it is so important is restraint. It teaches us control. The word in Hebrew for kadosh means holy, but it actually means set apart, something special. Something special is set apart and holy. They did studies where they asked men and women, what are they looking for in a partner? And it was very interesting, the different things that men said and women said. But the number one thing that both men and women said was a faithful partner. We're looking for someone who's going to be faithful. When we can have restraint within our marriage, when we can flex those muscles of restraint and self-control within our marriage, we have a greater chance of flexing those muscles outside of the marriage instead of looking around and choosing others. Number 3, one of the 4 things that we mentioned that men say about women, and they're complaining about women, is, why are you letting yourself go? And I think when they're saying this, they don't only mean physically you're not as attractive as you used to be. I think they're saying, why are you letting yourself go? When we used to go out in the beginning, or in the beginning of our marriage, you used to know how to ask for that cup of coffee when you wanted it. You didn't hint for it, you said you wanted it. Somehow women lose themselves in a marriage. We're so full of taking care of everyone's needs. Our children, our siblings, our parents, our work or co-workers, our relatives, our friends, our neighbors. We're so busy taking care of everyone's needs that we sometimes lose ourselves. What mikvah does, what this system of living does, is it gives women that space when she inherently doesn't have the desire to actually not have that space, that physical space. A kiss can so easily, or a hug can so easily cover over so many issues that you don't actually work through. This time period when they are not physically together allows the couple to explore other areas of communication, of enhancing their relationship, emotionally working on their relationship. And it gives the woman the space where she's no longer rejecting him when she's not interested, but it's naturally built in to follow the ebb and flow of her desire. So she's not saying no, and she's not looked at as an object anymore, but as a real person with her own needs and wants. When a woman goes to the mikvah, she experiences a kind of rebirth. Water is the most spiritual kind of thing that we have. We actually dunk into that water. It's like the water from primordial water from before creation. And it connects her to something within herself, to find herself, so that when she emerges from the waters of the mikvah, she's a renewed person, a completely renewed, recharged person. So it gives that sense of space. The 4th thing that it does is it introduces the divine in our relationship. I had a couple who came to me, and the wife had just had a baby a little while ago, and the husband and she was going through postpartum issues, and she was in her own world, and the husband was in his own world, and he actually had an affair. And they came to me, and they were asking, what can we do? Is there a way to repair our relationship? You see, when a relationship is based on his commitment to her and her commitment to him, and only that, there are times in a relationship where you don't feel so kind to each other. It might happen once a week, it might happen a whole week, it might happen a few months of the year, it might be 6 months of the year or a year, where your relationship is going through a down period. And right now, I don't really feel so close to her. I don't really feel that connection. When there isn't something else in the relationship that's holding the commitment, this divine partner in the relationship, it's easy to stray. But when there's this divine aspect in the relationship, when we invite God into our home and we make him a partner in this relationship, it's not about anymore, am I in the mood of being nice to her? Or am I in the mood of being nice to him today? There's a commitment to something higher. We're taking something physical and we're introducing the divine into it and making it something so holy. God doesn't need us to do any mitzvot, but the word mitzvah doesn't only mean good deed, it actually means connection. Mitzvah from tzavta, from the word connection. This is how we connect to God. God is saying to us, you want a relationship with me? Here's what I need in the relationship. And you know what? The things that I need to have a relationship with you are going to make you the most happiest, most meaningful kind of life possible. Because this is not only good for me, this is for you. This is for your sake. And on that level, it also, when we introduce the divine into our relationship, we also get a certain awareness of highs and lows, times of union, times of separation, times of connection, and times when where we're a little disconnected. That helps us to look at life like that. There are times that we are connected, and there are times that it's not so good. And we know that there's this continuous cycle that goes around and around and comes around. And that helps us to see that in a kind of divine way. And finally, the last benefit that I want to talk about is it's the best gift that you can give to your children and to the Jewish people. We say that a mikveh is more important to have for a community than even a shul. Do you know that you're allowed to sell the Sefer Torah? The Sefer Torah is the holiest thing in Judaism. People would jump into burning synagogues in order to save these Sefer Torahs. They're so holy to us. You're allowed to sell the Torah in order to build a mikveh. That's how high of a regard God considers it. That's how central family life is to God. That's how important it is to God. My mother grew up in Russia. Her mother used to have a hard time going to mikveh. There were grandparents of ours who used to actually dig into the ice in order to experience the mikveh, and yet they did it. We have beautiful mikvehs today, gorgeous mikvehs, warm, like spa-like. We don't need that kind of self-sacrifice, but it's the best gift that you can give to your child and to the Jewish people. And when I say this, when we talk about pregnancy, a pregnant woman will do anything to avoid all different kinds of things. Nowadays, they even have music that plays because that's good for the fetus, the unborn fetus. All kinds of things that she'll do that we don't even understand for the sake of the baby. This is a spiritual thing that each and every one of us can do for the sake of the Jewish people and for the sake of our children. Now, when I say that, I also need to say that even if you're past the stage of going to the mikveh, spirituality is something that isn't bound by time. It can be at all times. So when we immerse that one last time, we retroactively change our past. That's really what teshuvah is when we repent. We change the past so that the past hasn't even included any sins or any negativity that we've done. And a person who is postmenopausal can go that one last time and retroactively, on a spiritual sense, change everything from beforehand. That's how spirituality works. So, in a nutshell, we live in a time that is highly sexualized, and things aren't working. Marriages are not working. This system respects women, is in tune with her natural rhythm of ebbs and flow of desire, makes marriage and intimate contact a priority, which it's not in our times. It makes it a priority, our connection a priority, and it brings God into our life as a central partner. I want to just conclude with a story. This is about a woman who lived in the time of the prophets. And she was a woman who Her husband had just recently died, and she had 2 sons, and she was in a very bad financial situation. She came to the prophet Elisha, and she said to him, "My husband has just died. I have 2 children. I have so much debt, and I have no money. So much so, my situation is so bad that the creditors want to come and take my children as slaves. What am I to do?" So the prophet said to her, "Tell me, what do you have in your home?" She says, "What do you mean? I just told you I'm in a very bad situation. There's nothing in my home." He says, "Hold on, take stock of your situation. What's in your home?" She thinks again and she says, "The only thing that I have in my home is 1 small cruse, 1 small jar of oil." He says, "If that's the case, here's what I want you to do. Go to your neighbors and borrow vessels, pots, pans, containers, anything that can hold things. Borrow them and bring it to your house. Take that cruse of oil and start pouring." She does so, and she pours from the cruse of oil, and it pours, and it pours, and it pours. And it fills all the pots, containers, and plastics and bottles that she has brought into her home. And she turns to her son and says, "Where's more?" And they say, "We used up everything." And that's when the oil stops pouring. The prophet says, "Take all the oil and sell it. With the money that you earn, you can now pay your creditors, and with the profit, you can now live comfortably for the rest of your life." Now, it's a nice story, right? Sweet, nice ending. That happened in the time of the prophets, a nice miracle. But we are told that this story has a lot more meaning to each and every one of our lives. It's not only a nice miracle that happened. Each of us is like the woman. We cry out and we say, our life feels like it's lifeless. Our husband died. A part of us has died. We feel like there's no joy de vivre, no passion, no happiness, no meaning in our lives. We feel devoid of that. A part of us has died. And we call out to God, or our mentor, or spiritual mentor, or our deep part of ourselves, and we're told, "Hold on, what do you have in your home?" We say, "There's nothing. There's no relationship left. My relationship with my spouse is dead. My spirituality is dead." And the prophet says, "Hold on. If a relationship is dead, you wouldn't be feeling this pain. The fact that you're feeling this pain means there's something still alive there, because something that has no pain, something that's dead has no pain. So what do you have in your home? There's something still alive in your relationship. There's something still alive in your connection to God." And what do we say we have? We say the only thing we have is 1 little jar of oil. Oil is that liquid that doesn't mix with any other liquids. You try to mix it and it always rises. Rises or falls? I'm not sure. It always separates, right? It's that pristine part of ourself, that part of our soul that's never tarnished, that's always connected to God. It's that spark in our relationship with our intended that's meant to be, that never dies, that's always alive, that's always vibrant. It's that small part of ourselves. And the prophet says, what should you do? Go out and borrow vessels. What are vessels? Vessels are deeds of action. The prophet tells us, go out and borrow vessels. Do positive things. You might feel at first like they're borrowed vessels. This isn't me. What, I should stop and pray every single day? What, I should say something nice to my husband when I feel like strangling him? It's not me. I feel like a hypocrite. It's okay. It's borrowed vessels. It's okay. Keep doing these borrowed things. Schedule a full, meaningful schedule to your day. Do lots of good deeds, even if they're borrowed at first, because when that oil of inspiration actually surfaces, it doesn't happen often. That connection, that part of our pristine soul, when it actually surfaces, it might be once a year, it might be once a month, it might be once a week. But when it actually surfaces, if it doesn't have deeds to fill, if it doesn't have the vessel of deed to fill, it will go back. It has no way to express itself. So husbands, go out and buy your wives flowers, do the dishes for her. Wives, smile at him, give him compliments even when you don't feel like it. Create a meaningful schedule in your life. Connect to your Creator. Pray, speak to him, communicate with him. Even if these things feel at first like they're borrowed, eventually, when that oil of inspiration surfaces, it will have what to fill. I wish us all that we all can learn more about the special mitzvah of mikvah, and we can learn from the Rebbetzin of the Shul, the Rabbi in the Shul. There's so much to learn about it. We just touched the tip of the iceberg of really what there is to learn about and to speak about. Try it. Try this mitzvah once. Go one time to this mikvah. The mikvah will soon be built. Try it once. See what it's like. See how it changes you. See how it changes your relationship. Try doing a mitzvah, because one mitzvah creates another mitzvah, and there's a ripple effect. And you might hopefully see that your marriage is enhanced and your spiritual connection to God is enhanced. Thank you for listening. Questions? We would love to take any kind of questions, comments, ideas that any of you, would you want them to write it down? Whatever you would like.
Kitty's going to get a paper and card, so if you have a question, you announce it.
Feel free to ask. You can ask anything, and this is something that is so central to our lives as Jews, that it's so important to just try it. Yes?
What are some of the stories that you hear in the communities where there's no mikvah, and some of the extents that the ladies are going through today, not just our great grandmothers to get it? What are some of the things that you have heard, that you know of?
Well, I can just today's world. I can tell you, I mean, there are Lubavitcher emissaries in all different parts of the world. My own daughter lives in the Bahamas. She just moved there this past year. She just got married. And when she needs to go to the mikvah, she needs to take a plane to go to Miami to actually go there. So they have to schedule it, figure it out, and I mean, they're planning on having a mikvah built in their community, but until it's built, people have to travel distances, far distances. I know people who ride for hours and hours if they don't have a mikvah, but they insist. This is so important. We're going to do it. So there's all kinds of stories. I know people who've got in the ocean, when they go visiting somewhere. Yes. People who go in the ocean, at nighttime when no one's looking, There are people who have done all kinds of, amazing things, because this mitzvah is so integral, so important for the Jewish people, and so important for each and every one of us. This is a spiritual change that you have. It says when a convert converts, they dunk in the mikvah. When we have dishes that we're using for holy purposes, we dunk it in the mikvah. This is a way of reaching a higher spiritual level. Men go to the mikvah sometimes on Erev Yom Kippur, or on Erev Shabbat or Yom Tov, on holidays. This is a way of reaching higher, to a higher spiritual level. So it's a beautiful mitzvah that creates such beauty in our lives, and also is something that can be beautiful to experience in terms of the change in our relationships and in terms of making it so special. So we need to schedule it and make it special. For a woman, she goes into the mikvah, she does all kinds of preparation before she goes, but then the culmination is the unity again of husband and wife. And that's when you see the difference. I know a husband who had his wife go to the mikvah, and he was like, wow, something they put into the mikvah water is that makes your skin so soft. No, they don't put anything into the mikvah waters. But when you're not with your wife for over, for almost 2 weeks, it feels so soft. Yes, it feels so special. Yes?
So, I've asked this question before. What do we know from Hashem? What is the special quality of water? Why water? This ordinary thing that comes out of a tap that has stuff in it that's just the most plain, simple thing. Do we know? What did God make so holy about water?
Great question. So it's actually not tap water. It's actually rainwater, which is collected. And so when we talk about rainwater, it's mixed obviously with regular water, but there's all kinds of halacha considerations of how much it needs to be and how you create these pits that are constantly mixing with this rainwater. But if we look at rainwater, it's something that was there. This is water from the sea or from the rain that mixes with the sea that was there from the beginning of creation. This is the same water that was primordial from the beginning of creation that we're going to now immerse in. When you think of water as well, where does a baby come from? In the womb. And what's surrounding the baby? This water. So the mikveh is compared to a womb where we come out from this spiritual water which was created from before, which is connected to the waters that were created from before creation, and we emerge from this womb to become a new person because this water is like the womb. There's all kinds of significance to how much. It has to be 40 sa'ah of water, which also has when we talk about the Mabul, the flood that came in the time of Noah, it says it was 40 days and 40 nights, and 40 sa'ah of the amounts that we have in the mikveh resembles those 40 days and 40 nights, which wasn't a punishment for the people then. It was a purification. It was a cleansing process. So women are very clean. When we go to the mikveh, we completely clean ourselves before we even go to the mikveh. But the idea is this spiritual rebirth. And that's why a convert goes to the mikveh. That's why men, when they prepare for Shabbat or holidays, immerse in the mikveh. We use the mikveh for many, many different kinds of things. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, he would prepare, you can imagine, this is the holiest day of the year. And he prepared for it by studying with great, great sages before for weeks and weeks on end. Finally, the day arrives, and he's communicating with God. He actually immerses in the mikveh 7 times. That's the holiness of the mikveh. So it's not about getting clean, but it is about connecting, rebirthing, finding a newer, higher self, finding a better self, coming out and emerging from the mikveh where you've touched the primordial water of creation and you've cleansed yourself in a spiritual way to reach a very high experience. I mean, there's a lot more, and I can give you sources for what to read, but this is a little touch of what the water resembles. Okay. Why can a postmenopausal woman go only once to the mikveh? So when we talk about the mitzvah of mikveh, the commandment, I mean, you can go to a mikveh as much as you want, really, that's not. But when we talk about the mitzvah of going to a mikveh, she has that mitzvah, that commandment, that connection to God of going one last time because she wants to be in a state of ritual purity, which has nothing to do with cleanliness, in order to connect with her husband again. So she has that one last time. She doesn't need to go. We only need to go after we've seen some menstrual blood. But she can go that time. People do ask me, though, how can we create that magic of the relationship? So you talk so much about the beauty of the separation and the reconciliation. And for a menopausal woman, she doesn't have a couple. They don't really have that separation and reconciliation. And the point, I guess, is that at that point in life, after you've experienced it for so many years, we try to experience it for all those years, we kind of get this pattern as part of our marriage system. So this communication, this intimate connection should be part of the system of our marriage. It also, when we talk about menopause, when we talk about mikveh in general, we look at every single mitzvah on a practical level, on a spiritual level, on a cosmic level. So we spoke about the practical implications and the spiritual implications of it. On a cosmic level, the separation and reconciliation of husband and wife is compared to God and the Jewish people. In fact, the word nida, which means a woman in her menstrual state before she goes to the mikveh, is composed of the words nida, nod, Hashem, which means God is wandering with us. God is wandering with us in our exile. God is with us throughout our exile. And this refers to a time period, our period of separation, on a metaphorical level, refers to the time period when the Jewish people are in exile, when we're separated from God. When we are then reunited with God, with the Beit HaMikdash rebuilt, we are at a state of connection and geula. We reconnect on a deeper level with God. So the post-menopausal state really is referring on a cosmic level to the time period of the actual redemption, the future redemption, when the Jewish people and God will be reunited, and that reunification is going to last forever because we will no longer need the separation process to teach us. You know, a separation process in a marriage that has the bumps in it are there for a reason. Challenges are there for a reason. Challenges are there so we can grow as people. In the time of Mashiach, we'll be at a stage where we no longer need that growth. We've endured that growth throughout. And now we're at a state where we're completely reconnected, where we can connect with God forever. And that really resembles the time period of a postmenopausal state on a cosmic level. The time when the husband and wife are completely connected, just like as God and the Jewish people are reconnected for forever and no longer need the challenges or the bumps in the relationship to grow and bring them together. It's the happy ever after. Okay, why vessels, what does it say? Why vessels need to go to mikvah? And why is food not kosher if cooked in vessels not in the mikvah? Okay, so the reason why we put vessels in a mikvah, only certain vessels need to go in the mikvah, but the reason why we do it is because mikvah represents going to a higher state, a higher spiritual state, as we explained. That's why we're connecting to these holy spiritual waters that bring us to a higher spiritual level. When we are ready to use vessels for ourselves, we're trying to elevate the vessels so now it can be used for holy reasons. And in order to prepare the vessels to be used for holy reasons, like eating and drinking and using the energy that we derive from eating and drinking for holy purposes, like doing things for God, in order to do that, we first need to immerse the vessels, to prepare the vessels, just like a convert immerses in the mikveh to prepare for the mitzvah of now being a Jew. Just like a man immerses in the mikveh before Shabbat, the holy experience of Shabbat or holidays, in order to prepare for that holiness of the Shabbat. And in the same way, we do so with vessels. We're now ready to use this vessel for a holy purpose, so they are immersed first in the mikveh as a form of elevation and preparation. Anyone else have any questions? Sure.
Sorry, I didn't write my note, but if a swimming pool is used as a mikveh, could one use the same swimming pool as a mikveh for the kelim?
Okay, so the laws of a mikveh for a woman are much more details than a regular mikveh. Because it is such a holy mitzvah, you know, when we talk about kelim, or when we talk about even men immersing in the mikveh, some of it is custom, some of it is mitzvah, some of it, but the severity of it, the importance of it, isn't as important as a woman immersing in the mikveh. The spiritual benefits that we get when a woman immerses in a mikveh is humongous. That's why we can sell the Sefer Torah for that. So the laws for a woman immersing in the mikveh are much more intricate, very intricate. Usually a swimming pool will not be enough unless it's constructed in a very particular way. But it may be enough for, let's say, a man immersing before Shabbat.
So that you could then could you then toivel in the swimming pool?
Usually it's vessels to be toiveled have more of a, like there's a hierarchy. So men could go into the swimming pool. I don't think vessels. Sorry, guys. That's Judaism. What can I say? You know, women are on the top.
Because we tried so much and we were traveling dishes today. We thought we'd go somewhere else. We went back to
But these questions could be addressed to the rabbi, which actually qualify. There's complex body of laws, really complex, because I know we're building in Pomona a Shabbos mikveh, and I know the rabbis have been poring over the laws, of how to do it, what to do, the pits that go underneath that connect to the water, and the mains, like very complex laws. So I'm not an expert in those laws.
But interesting, the pot or the dish can't really be toiable in a swimming pool. Wait a minute.
Right. Rub it in. Yes.
When you mentioned that the beach or something like that, there's no dimensions, like that, so many cubits and so forth. So does the ocean qualify?
Well, there is actually a certain amount of cubits that do go into the mikveh, but the ocean, many people will say, is okay because it's naturally the rainwaters that are gathered. That's really the most natural gathered body of water.
The dimensions don't apply.
The what?
The dimensions don't apply.
The dimensions don't apply, but again, that would be, you shouldn't just go in the ocean. You should be asking a rabbi for exact, how to do it and what to do. Yeah. So if any of you would like to learn more, there is an organization, as we said, called Mikveh USA. There's a site called My Gift of Mikveh, which has classes that you can learn on your own, or you can take classes as well from the Rebbetzin. So please be in touch with me and her, or her, about further learning about this beautiful, important mitzvah that can truly enhance your life and enhance the lives of all the Jewish people. Yes?
What are some of the opening lines that you've used in the past when you're talking to new couples that when you tell them stuff like that, it sounds like Chinese and say,
Actually, they really relate to the fact that marriages are in trouble today, and people are looking for what can we do to make it better. And it sounds like Chinese, but on the other hand, it makes a lot of sense, because things that you have so often, you really take for granted. So you could look for all kinds of, like that sex therapist. I was shocked when I thought, who knows what she's going to tell me? And she's like, I'm taking notes. I want to teach this to all my clients. That surprised me. But yet sometimes it's the most basic, simple things that really work. We don't need to look for other things. And the Torah is our book of life. It does teach us what's so valuable and how to lead a meaningful life, because it's God's manual for us.
I think also the stats also speak to that the statistics of divorce in
Absolutely.
communities that use mikvah are disproportionate to communities that don't.
Absolutely. Yes. And nowadays mikveh has become so widespread. It's not, it used to be only Orthodox people who are really Orthodox, who use it. Nowadays you see all kinds of people of all different levels of observance. Some no observance, but this is the only thing that they do keep, who are going to the mikveh and who see the benefits of it in their lives. Okay, if any of you would like to come over to me personally or would like to ask anything, feel free to address me in person as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chana. This is all